The hunt begins. The forest was silent except for the soft crunch of dry leaves under her boots. Mist hung low, curling around the twisted trees like ghostly fingers. She moved carefully, every step measured, every sound noted. Her eyes, sharp and alert, scanned the shadows. Somewhere in this forest, the human she had been tracking was hiding. Somewhere he was waiting, maybe even watching her. She paused near a broken tree stump, crouching low. Her heart beat faster. This was no ordinary hunt. She had been trained for this, prepared for danger. But something about this human made her uneasy. Rumors told of his cleverness, his ability to survive in places no one could follow. Others had tried to catch him and failed. She was determined not to be one of those failures. The air smelled damp and earthy. A faint wind carried the scent of smoke, barely noticeable but enough to make her stop. Could it be him? She tightened her grip on her weapon. A small but powerful device designed for precision. Every muscle in her body was tense, ready to react. She could hear her own breathing now, even though she tried to stay quiet. She moved forward again, slower this time. The forest seemed to watch her as much as she watched it. Branches cracked underfoot, and distant birds stirred in the trees. She knew she had to keep calm. One wrong move, and the human could disappear like a shadow, leaving her with nothing but silence. Hours passed, though she did not notice. Her eyes scanned the forest floor, following footprints, broken twigs, and other small clues. He was careful, leaving almost no trace. Still, she knew he was close. Her instincts told her that. Hunters relied on instincts, and hers screamed that the human was near. Suddenly, she spotted something unusual. A small pile of stones, carefully stacked, almost like a marker. Her mind raced. Who had left this? Not a human passing through, she was certain of that. This was deliberate. A message, a trap. She crouched lower, moving closer to inspect. The stones were smooth, perfectly balanced. There was no sign of haste. Whoever did this was intelligent, patient. She could feel a chill run down her spine. She glanced around. The forest was darkening as the sun sank behind the distant hills. Shadows stretched long and thin, twisting the shapes of trees into strange, eerie forms. She tightened her grip on her weapon again. Something about this place made her feel like she was not the only predator here. Maybe the forest itself was alive. Then she heard it, a faint rustle behind her. She spun quickly, weapon raised, but there was nothing, just leaves swaying in the wind. Her pulse quickened. She had trained for moments like this, yet every time it happened, a small fear crept into her mind. The human was clever. He could make her doubt herself. She moved again, slower now, almost floating across the forest floor. Every sense was alert. Every sound and shadow was a possible clue. She stopped by a small stream, listening. The water gurgled softly, a comforting sound, but even here she felt the weight of unseen eyes. She leaned down, scanning the banks. Footprints? Nothing clear. Still, the feeling of being watched remained. Her mind wandered briefly. She remembered the warnings from others. He is not like you. He thinks differently. He can outsmart anyone who hunts him. She shook the thought away. Doubt was dangerous. She needed focus. The human was clever, yes, but she was trained to be patient, observant, and precise. She would find him. As she moved along the stream, she noticed smoke curling gently from a distance, thin and almost invisible in the dim light. Her heart skipped a beat. Could it be him? She crouched lower, hiding behind a large rock. The smoke smelled faintly of burning wood. Someone had made a fire recently. Her mind raced. Was it a trap? She had to be careful. Every hunter knew that patience could mean the difference between success and failure. She observed from her hiding spot, trying to see without being seen. Shapes moved near the smoke, but they were too small to recognize. Her pulse raced. The human was clever, maybe cleverer than she thought. The sun disappeared completely, leaving the forest bathed in twilight. Shadows grew long and dark. She stayed hidden, her eyes straining. She could feel the anticipation building inside her. Every sense was alive. Every sound, every flicker of movement could be the clue she needed. And then she saw it. A small flicker of light near the fire. Someone was there. Not moving like a prey hiding. Not panicked, calm. Unseen yet present. She felt her stomach tighten. This was the human. This was the moment she had prepared for. She crouched lower, waiting, watching. Her weapon was ready. Every instinct screamed to strike, but also to wait. Patience was key. Whatever lay ahead, she had to be ready for anything. The hunt had begun. But she could not know that what she would find at that campfire would change everything. Signs of something strange, the hunter moved slowly, careful not to make a sound. The smoke she had spotted yesterday was still there, faint and curling into the early morning air. But something was different now. The forest felt off. It was almost too quiet. Birds did not chirp, leaves did not rustle the same way. Every small sound seemed amplified, echoing between the trees. She crouched behind a fallen log and scanned the clearing ahead. The fire she had seen before was gone, leaving only ashes and a few glowing embers. Someone had been here recently, but the ground was strangely undisturbed except for one set of footprints. They were small, human-sized, but careful, almost delicate. Whoever left them had thought about each step, placing them with purpose. Her curiosity mixed with unease. The human she hunted was clever, yes, but this was something else. She stepped forward slowly, careful to avoid breaking twigs. Her eyes darted to every shadow, every movement. Then she saw it. A perfectly arranged pile of sticks like a small sculpture. She froze. Who would do this? Was it a warning, a sign? She leaned closer, examining it. The sticks were smooth and evenly cut, not broken randomly. Whoever made this was precise. Her mind raced. Could the human be playing with her? Was he leading her somewhere? She felt a shiver run down her spine. As she moved through the forest, more signs appeared. A circle of stones perfectly placed around a small hollow in the ground. A few torn leaves, arranged carefully in patterns she did not understand. Her instincts screamed that she was being watched, tested even. Every step she took, she felt a presence nearby, never threatening but always observing. She stopped near a small stream to drink. The water was cool, clear, and still, but as she bent to take a sip, she noticed something strange. The reflection of the trees on the water's surface did not match exactly what she saw above. A shadow shifted slightly behind her reflection, though no one was there. She spun around, weapon raised, but the forest was empty. Her pulse quickened. Was it her imagination, or was the human closer than she thought? The hunter pressed on, moving quietly over moss-covered stones and fallen branches. She found small signs that made her pause. A carefully carved notch in a tree, a trail of pebbles leading to nowhere, and a faint smell of cooked food carried on the wind. Her mind worked quickly. Whoever had been here was intelligent, thoughtful, and patient. This was no ordinary human. This was someone who knew the forest as well as she did. Suddenly, she heard a soft hum. It was faint, almost melodic, and seemed to come from the direction of the smoke she had seen the day before. She froze, listening. The sound was calming yet strange, like a tune from long ago, one she could not place. Her heartbeat slowed, curiosity overtaking fear for a moment. Could it be him? She took a cautious step forward. A shadow flickered in the corner of her eye. She spun around, but again the forest seemed empty. She felt a mixture of irritation and excitement. This human was clever, slipping in and out of the shadows, leaving just enough signs to make her chase him. Her hunter's pride flared. She had been trained for situations like this, and yet, this was unlike anything she had faced. She came to a small clearing where the sunlight broke through the trees. Here the signs were unmistakable. A half-eaten meal sat on a flat rock, perfectly placed, untouched by animals. The smell of roasted meat lingered faintly. It was warm, freshly made. She crouched, observing, but no one appeared. Her mind raced. Was this a trap, or an invitation? The human was playing with her, testing her patience, observing her reactions. Her instincts told her to strike, to end the hunt now, but a part of her wanted to wait to see what would happen next. Suddenly, she noticed movement in the distance. Not fast, not threatening, just slow, deliberate. A small shadow flitted between the trees, disappearing before she could focus on it. She adjusted her stance, heart pounding. Whoever was there, they were aware of her. She felt the thrill of the hunt more sharply than ever. Hours passed in careful observation. Every detail in the forest seemed alive. The human had left signs, but always with subtlety, as if challenging her to notice, to think, to follow. She found more symbols, a circle of twigs, a line of stones, and marks on trees that seemed like messages. Her curiosity deepened. Whoever this human was, he was unlike any prey she had ever tracked. As dusk approached, she found herself at the edge of another clearing. The smell of smoke was stronger now, mixed with the scent of fresh food. Her pulse quickened. The signs had led her here closer than ever before. She crouched low behind a tree, peeking into the clearing. There in the fading light she saw it, a small, carefully arranged campfire glowing gently, and the shadow of someone sitting quietly beside it. Her heart pounded in her chest. The human was here waiting, or maybe just living, unaware of the hunt. She could not tell. She held her breath, watching, trying to decide what to do next. Patience had always been her strength, and she would need it now more than ever. The forest held its breath with her. And somewhere in the shadows she felt that the human was watching, waiting, and perhaps preparing for the next move. The hunt was far from over, and the signs she had discovered were only the beginning. Closing in, the forest had grown darker, the sunlight fading into long shadows that twisted across the ground. The hunter crouched low, moving silently over moss and fallen branches. Her senses were sharp, every sound magnified, every shadow suspicious. She knew she was close. The signs had led her here. Smoke rising faintly in the distance, the faint smell of cooked food lingering in the cool evening air. She paused behind a thick tree trunk, peering into the clearing ahead. The campfire she had glimpsed yesterday was alive again, glowing softly. The flicker of flames cast shadows that danced on the surrounding trees, stretching and twisting like fingers reaching into the darkness. Her heart beat faster, anticipation and caution blending into one sharp edge of focus. Her eyes scanned the clearing. The firelight revealed small signs of presence. A neatly arranged pile of wood beside the fire, a pot suspended over the flames, and a thin column of smoke curling lazily into the air. No human movement was visible, but she could feel it. Someone was there. Someone was watching, waiting. She took a careful step forward, mindful of the dry leaves underfoot. Each step required perfect control, a balance of silence and speed. She crouched low again, her weapon ready, scanning for any flicker of motion. The forest seemed unusually quiet, the usual chatter of birds and insects absent. Her instincts told her that she was not alone. A faint sound drew her attention, a soft scrape near the fire. She froze, holding her breath. Then, as if aware of her gaze, the firelight shifted slightly. A shadow moved, slow and deliberate, but there was no panic, no sudden gesture. Whoever it was, they were calm, confident. The hunter felt a mix of caution and curiosity. She had tracked many prey before, but none had ever shown such composure. She edged closer, hugging the cover of trees and shrubs. The smell of cooked meat was stronger now, almost irresistible. Her stomach reminded her of hunger, but she ignored it. Focus was all that mattered. The human, if it was truly him, was clever, perhaps cleverer than she had imagined. Every sign, every sound, every subtle detail suggested a mind at work, planning, observing, waiting. She crouched behind a boulder at the edge of the clearing. From here, she could see everything without being seen. The campfire burned steadily, illuminating the figure seated beside it. He was small, human-sized, but ordinary in appearance. Nothing about him screamed danger, yet every instinct in her body screamed caution. She could feel the tension in the air, thick and palpable, as if the forest itself held its breath. Her eyes caught something unusual, a small arrangement of stones near the fire, carefully stacked, almost like a marker or message. The pattern was too precise, too deliberate to be accidental. Whoever made it had thought carefully, deliberately. She tilted her head, studying it. The human was clever, leaving signs that teased and challenged, testing her focus and patience. Her mind raced with possibilities. Was he playing a game with her? Or was he simply living and she was reading too much into it? She shook the thought away. Doubt was dangerous. The human's calm suggested confidence, but that could hide cunning. She had to be careful. One misstep, one wrong move, and the hunt could end before it truly began. A twig snapped behind her, soft but distinct. She spun, weapon raised, heart pounding, nothing. Just shadows stretching long and thin in the fading light. Her pulse slowed, but not entirely. The hunter knew better than to be fooled by silence or shadows. The human could be anywhere, watching, waiting for her to make a mistake. She moved again, closer this time, creeping along the edge of the clearing. Her eyes never left the figure by the fire. He stirred slightly, adjusting the pot over the flames, but made no sound. There was a rhythm to his movements, calm and deliberate, almost meditative. The hunter felt a chill. This was not a human who panicked, who ran at the first sign of danger. He was patient, aware, and ready. She stopped behind a low bush just a few meters from the fire now. The smell of food was strong enough to make her stomach ache, but she ignored it. She had one goal: to see, to understand, and to prepare. Her eyes darted to every detail. The curve of his hands as they handled the pot, the soft glow of the fire on his face, the deliberate calm in his movements. Her mind whispered warnings. He was clever, too clever to be caught easily. She had followed the signs, read the messages he left, and now she was here, on the edge of discovery. The hunter knew this was a turning point. Every instinct screamed that something unexpected was about to happen, something that would test her patience and skills more than ever before. She crouched lower, hiding completely in the shadows, watching. Every sense was alert. Every rustle of leaves, every flicker of light on the fire, every whisper of the wind carried a possible clue. The human was here. He was clever, and she was closing in, step by cautious step, toward a moment that could change everything. The forest waited with her, silent and tense, as she prepared for the next move. The hunt had led her here, and the line between predator and prey had begun to blur. The unexpected scene. She had been tracking him for hours, every sense alert, every muscle coiled like a spring. Her heart still beat fast from the tension, but now as she crouched behind a thick bush at the edge of the clearing, something strange happened. She froze, not from fear but from confusion. The fire burned steadily, small flames dancing on the dry wood. Smoke spiraled lazily into the twilight sky, and there he was, the human, sitting calmly, his back straight, arms relaxed, tending a small pot over the fire. He was not hiding. He was not tense, not even slightly. He moved with ease, completely unaware, or maybe aware in a way she could not understand. Her fingers tightened around her weapon, but she could not bring herself to raise it. She had expected a trap, a fight, maybe even clever tricks to lure her closer, but what she saw now made her pause. He was cooking. He had made a small fire, placed a pot on it, and now he stirred something gently, humming softly under his breath. The smell of cooked food wafted toward her. It was warm, inviting, almost impossible to resist. Her mind raced. Was this real? Could this human truly be so calm in the middle of a forest where hunters like her had tried and failed? She blinked, trying to make sense of it. There was a faint light in his eyes, intelligent and careful, but also kind, not fearsome, not threatening. She crouched lower, heart still hammering. Her instincts screamed that she should strike, but another part of her, a deeper part, whispered to wait. Watch. Learn. Understand. The hunter in her had trained for danger, for cunning opponents, but this was something else entirely. He hummed again, stirring the pot. A small breeze carried the aroma toward her hiding place. She felt her stomach tighten, but it wasn't just hunger. It was fascination. She had expected a clever human, but not this. Not someone so calm, so deliberate, so ordinary, yet clearly extraordinary. Then she noticed something that made her pause even more. Around the fire, small items were carefully placed. A line of pebbles, a few leaves arranged in patterns, even a small pile of twigs stacked like tiny towers. Every detail seemed intentional, almost like a message. Whoever he was leaving signs, deliberate, precise, but gentle. Not threatening. Not a trap. Her mind spun with possibilities. Was he testing her? Was he showing her something? Or was this just how he lived, and she had been reading too much into the forest and the signs? Doubt crept in, subtle but persistent. She had come to hunt, to track, to capture, or maybe to kill. Yet now she felt herself questioning why. She inched a little closer, careful to stay hidden. The firelight flickered on his face, revealing features that were calm, composed, and surprisingly human. Not wild, not dangerous, not the predator she expected. And yet there was something in his movements. A cleverness in the way he handled the pot and arranged the items around the fire that told her he was far from ordinary. Her curiosity overcame caution for a moment. She leaned a little further, trying to see more clearly. The human stirred the pot again, humming softly, and glanced around as if sensing her presence, though she remained hidden. His eyes seemed to hold a quiet understanding, a knowledge that she could not yet grasp. The hunter's mind raced. Could he really know she was there? Was this part of the test? Or was it coincidence, the result of careful observation over time? She could not tell. And that uncertainty gnawed at her, pulling her closer, keeping her frozen, keeping her watching. She noticed the pot's contents, a simple stew, nothing extravagant but carefully prepared. He handled the ingredients with care, chopping and stirring, arranging everything just so. The attention to detail fascinated her. Every movement had purpose, every action deliberate. He was calm, precise, and intelligent, far more than she had expected from a prey she had been tracking for so long. The sun dipped lower, leaving the forest in shades of purple and gray. Shadows stretched long, twisting across the clearing. The human continued his quiet work, unaware of the danger she had prepared for, or perhaps aware in a way she could not yet understand. She stayed in the shadows, watching, every sense alert, and then it happened, a small gesture that made her pause completely. He looked directly at her hiding spot, though she had not moved. For a moment his eyes held hers, calm and unafraid. It was as if he had known she was there all along. Not threatening, not hostile, but inviting almost, welcoming. Her mind struggled to make sense of it. She had come to hunt. She had prepared for a chase, for a fight, for danger. But now she realized she had stumbled into something entirely unexpected. The human was not the threat she had imagined. And yet he held power in his calmness, in his intelligence, in the way he controlled the space around him without even knowing, or perhaps by knowing too well, her presence. The hunter took a shallow breath, holding it as she weighed her next move. She could attack, reveal herself, test him, or she could wait, observe, and try to understand. Her instincts told her patience might be the only way to survive this encounter. The fire crackled softly in the quiet forest, and the human hummed again, stirring his simple meal. She crouched low, hidden, heart pounding, mind racing, caught between curiosity and caution, between fear and fascination. The hunt had brought her here, but what she found was nothing like she expected, and for the first time, she wondered if the hunter might become the observed, and the prey might teach the hunter something she had never imagined. Silent observation, she stayed hidden, crouched behind the thick undergrowth, eyes fixed on the human by the fire. His movements were deliberate, slow, almost ritualistic. Each action seemed meaningful, stirring the pot, arranging sticks, adjusting the firewood. There was a rhythm to it, a quiet precision that both fascinated and unsettled her. She had expected fear, panic, maybe even clever tricks to escape her. Instead, he was calm, patient, almost inviting in his stillness. Her instinct screamed caution, but her curiosity overpowered her caution. She wanted to see, to understand, to figure him out before he even knew she was there. Minutes stretched into hours, or perhaps only moments. Time felt strange in the forest. Every sound she made, every shadow she moved through could give her away. She stayed low, almost forgetting to breathe, watching how he handled the pot, how he arranged the small objects around the fire. The little details were meticulous. Leaves were stacked in neat patterns, pebbles aligned along invisible lines, and the firewood carefully balanced for optimal flame. She noticed his hands, strong, steady, deliberate. Each movement had a purpose. It was not survival instinct alone. It was intention. He was intelligent, deliberate, aware of himself and the space around him. The hunter in her could not ignore it. He was clever, cleverer than anyone she had tracked before. A faint humming sound drifted from him. Low and melodic, it seemed to float on the breeze, soft and strange. She felt a chill. It was comforting in a way, almost hypnotic yet eerie. How could someone remain so calm here, in the middle of a forest with someone watching so closely? Her fingers tightened around her weapon, but she did not move. She could not risk revealing herself, not yet. She shifted slightly to get a better view, careful not to rustle leaves. That's when she noticed the small details that set him apart even more. A line of tiny stones forming a perfect arc near the fire. Small scratches on nearby tree bark, not random but patterned, almost like letters or symbols she could not read. He was leaving messages, or perhaps games, for her to notice if she was attentive enough. Her pulse quickened. She had been following his signs for hours, and now the signs were here in the clearing itself, right before her eyes. It was as if he wanted her to see, wanted her to understand something she could not yet grasp. And still he had not looked up, had not acknowledged her presence. A faint breeze carried another smell, the scent of roasted meat, warm and inviting. She realized her stomach ached, not just from hunger but from fascination. This human, her prey, was so different from what she expected. Not a beast, not a threat, not panicked. Calm, clever, precise, and somehow humane. She had expected danger, but what she saw now was something more unsettling. Control, knowledge, and quiet confidence. She watched as he gently adjusted the fire, tending the flames with patience. Then he added another small branch, carefully placing it so the fire would burn evenly. Nothing rushed, nothing careless. She felt her heart beat faster, not from fear but from admiration, though she would not admit it. Then he did something that stopped her completely. He looked directly at her hiding spot. For a fraction of a second, their eyes, or rather she imagined his eyes, met hers, calm, knowing, unafraid. It was not a challenge or a threat. It was acknowledgement, recognition. She froze, holding her breath, unsure if she had been noticed or if it was instinct. Her mind raced. Could he really know she was there? Was this part of the pattern, the puzzle he was creating for her? Or was it something deeper, something beyond cleverness or cunning? She had come to hunt, to track, to test herself, and now she realized she was learning, observing, questioning her own instincts in the process. The forest around her seemed to grow quieter, more still. Even the wind softened. She could hear his soft hum, the faint crackle of the fire, the subtle movements of the night creatures in the shadows. Every detail felt amplified. Every small action held meaning. She had never been this aware, this alert, this attuned to someone else's presence. She inched slightly closer, still hidden, trying to study him without being seen. Her eyes followed every gesture, the careful stirring, the small smile that touched his lips as if recalling a memory, the way he occasionally paused to glance at something beyond the clearing. Every moment was deliberate, controlled, and yet somehow natural. Hours passed without a word. She remained in the shadows, silent, patient, observing. Each passing moment deepened her understanding. This human was not ordinary. He was clever, calm, and perhaps even teaching her something without saying a word. And then finally she realized it. She was no longer thinking of him as prey. She was watching him as something entirely new, something she had not expected. He was more than clever, more than careful. He was alive in a way she had not anticipated, and he was changing the way she saw the forest, the hunt, and even herself. Her mind whispered warnings. This was not over. There was still danger. There was still mystery. But for the first time she felt that patience, observation, and understanding might be more powerful than speed, strength, or weapons. She remained hidden, quiet, and alert, knowing that every detail she learned now would matter when the moment of truth finally came. The fire crackled softly, and the human hummed again. She crouched in the shadows, watching silently, every sense alive, heart steady yet pounding, caught between fear and fascination. The hunter had become the observer. The first encounter, the hunter had been watching him for hours, crouched low in the shadows, every sense alert. Her mind raced with thoughts, questions, and caution. She had expected danger, clever traps, or at least a wary glance from the human she hunted. But so far there had been nothing but calm. He moved with purpose, tending his fire, arranging objects, humming softly under the twilight sky. And then, as if the forest itself had shifted, he looked up. Not in alarm, not in curiosity. He simply looked straight at her hiding spot. Her breath caught. His eyes, calm, sharp, and knowing, met hers. It was not a challenge. It was not a threat. It was awareness, recognition. Her body froze. For a moment she wondered if she had been seen. Then she realized something startling. He hadn't moved in surprise or fear. He remained seated, relaxed, almost inviting her to step forward. Her instincts screamed caution. Every hunter knew that calm could mask danger. Every subtle gesture could be a trap. Yet there was something in his gaze, something that made her hesitate. Slowly, carefully, she emerged from her hiding spot. Each movement was deliberate. Her weapon was ready, but she did not raise it yet. She wanted to see him fully, understand him before making a decision. The forest seemed to hold its breath, the shadows stretching long and thin around the firelight. He shifted slightly, still calm, and gestured toward the fire, not in threat, but in acknowledgement. His movements were deliberate, precise, almost as if he were testing her. She noticed the faint lines of symbols around the fire, the small patterns he had created with stones and sticks. Every detail suggested intelligence, patience, and thought. This was no ordinary human. Her mind raced. Could he really know she was there all along? Was he inviting her deliberately, playing a game she did not fully understand? She took another cautious step closer. The smell of the stew over the fire reached her, warm and comforting, oddly humanizing. She felt her curiosity overpowering the tension in her chest. You've been watching, she said, her voice low, cautious. Not a question, not a challenge, but an observation. He looked up at her, calm and steady. Then he smiled, a small, knowing smile that held no fear, no malice. I know, he said softly. His voice was calm, gentle, and yet there was a quiet authority in it. I've been expecting you. Her pulse quickened. Expecting her? That was impossible. Or maybe not. Maybe this human truly was cleverer than she had imagined. She hesitated, studying him. There was no fear in his posture, no sign of panic, only calm. Yet beneath that calm, she could sense intelligence, awareness, and perhaps even strategy. She lowered her weapon slightly, though not entirely. Why are you here? She asked. Why not hide? Why not run? He stirred the pot gently, as if her questions were part of the rhythm he had already established. Because hiding changes nothing, he said simply, and running only delays what is already happening. His words were calm, deliberate, carrying meaning she could not fully grasp. The forest seemed to grow quieter around them, as if waiting for what would happen next. She took another step forward, cautious but curious. He did not flinch. He did not react. It was almost as if he had planned for this moment, as if he had known exactly how she would approach. Her eyes swept over the fire, the stew, the careful arrangements of stones and sticks. Every detail he had created spoke of patience, intelligence, and understanding. She realized she was studying him not as prey, but as something more complex, something she had never faced before. Then he did something that made her pause completely. He pushed the pot slightly toward her, a small gesture, almost casual. Sit, he said calmly, gently, without a hint of threat. Watch, learn, understand. Her mind screamed caution. She had come to hunt, to track, perhaps to fight. Yet here he was, offering her food, inviting her into his space without fear, without aggression. The forest felt still, the air thick with anticipation. She could sense that every decision, every movement in the next moments would matter more than she could imagine. Her instincts urged her to retreat, to strike, to assert control, but another part of her, the part that had been quietly observing all along, urged patience, observation, understanding. She took a slow step forward, lowering her weapon further, drawn by curiosity she could not resist. He smiled again, calm and knowing, as if he had been waiting for this moment, this exact choice. The hunter had become the observer, and the human, the prey she thought she understood, was teaching her a lesson in patience, intelligence, and subtle power. For the first time, she wondered, had she been hunting the human, or had the human been hunting her the entire time? The forest was quiet, the fire crackling softly, and between them, an unspoken understanding began to form, one that would change the hunt, and perhaps change everything. Understanding and connection. The hunter remained frozen for a moment, crouched just beyond the edge of the firelight. The human's calm presence seemed to fill the clearing, as if the forest itself had shifted to match his rhythm. Every instinct inside her told her to strike, to assert control, to finish what she had come to do. Yet another instinct, curiosity, patience, understanding, urged her to stay, to watch, to listen. The human stirred the pot gently, releasing a warm, comforting aroma into the cool evening air. He looked up at her again, his eyes calm yet sharp, full of understanding and awareness. You don't have to be afraid, he said softly, as if reading her thoughts. I am not your enemy. Her weapon remained in her hands, though she had lowered it slightly. Her chest heaved with the rush of tension, adrenaline, and confusion. She had expected confrontation, danger, perhaps even clever tricks to evade her. Instead, she faced patience, intelligence, and an invitation she could not refuse. She stepped closer, moving carefully over moss-covered stones, every movement deliberate, controlled. The firelight flickered across her face as she approached, reflecting the uncertainty in her eyes. Her mind raced. Could she trust him? Was this another test, another trap she could not yet perceive? He motioned to a small stone near the fire, then gestured toward the empty space beside him. Sit, he said gently. There is no reason for hostility. His voice was steady, calm, yet carried authority. It was the voice of someone used to thinking, planning, and surviving, but also of someone who understood the value of patience. The hunter hesitated, then knelt on the forest floor, still keeping her distance. Every sense remained alert, Yet slowly, curiosity began to replace tension. She watched him carefully, noticing how naturally he moved, how precise his actions were, how intentional every detail of his environment seemed. Even the fire, carefully balanced, seemed like a reflection of his mind. Controlled, deliberate, alive. "You were following the signs," he said softly, almost to himself. "I hoped you would notice. I hoped you would understand." His words made her pause. Understand what? She realized that the forest, the fire, the symbols, and even the meal he had prepared were part of something bigger. A test, a lesson, or perhaps an invitation to see the world differently. She studied him more closely. There was intelligence in every gesture, calm in every motion, and patience in every glance. The human she had hunted, the one she expected to evade, resist, or even fight, was not a prey to trap or kill. He was a teacher of observation, of patience, and perhaps even of humility. Her weapon felt heavier in her hands, as if she no longer needed it. Slowly, almost instinctively, she lowered it to her side. The tension in her body began to ease. Her breathing became more regular, though her senses remained sharp. She realized that she had been chasing a shadow, an idea, a puzzle that had guided her through the forest. And now the puzzle was revealing itself in its true form, not danger but understanding. The human handed her a small bowl from the pot, steam rising in gentle swirls. "Eat," he said softly. "There is more to see when you are not hungry, when you are clear-minded." She hesitated for a moment, then accepted it, placing the bowl in her lap. The warmth of the meal seemed to settle something deep inside her, melting tension she hadn't realized she carried. As she ate quietly, she watched him. The forest around them remained still, almost reverent, as if acknowledging the change in the moment. She noticed things she had not before. The care with which he balanced the firewood, the way he arranged the stones and sticks, the way he moved with awareness and intention. Every detail seemed meaningful, deliberate, and full of purpose. "Why did you let me follow you?" she asked finally, her voice low, careful. "Why not run?" He smiled, small and knowing. "Because the hunt is never what it seems," he replied. "Sometimes the hunter learns more from the prey than the prey ever does from the hunter." His words echoed in her mind, strange and profound. She realized he was right. The forest, the signs, the patience, the careful observation, they had taught her more about herself than the hunt ever could. They sat together quietly as the fire flickered. No words were needed. Understanding passed between them, unspoken but clear. She had come to hunt, to challenge, to conquer. Instead, she had found patience, intelligence, and connection. The human had not been afraid of her. He had been patient, calm, and deliberate, showing her that strength was not only in action but also in stillness, observation, and awareness. Hours passed, though neither counted them. The forest held them in a quiet embrace, shadows dancing across the ground, the fire crackling softly. Slowly she realized that the hunt was over, not in victory, not in conquest, but in understanding. She had seen the human fully, not as prey, not as a puzzle to solve, but as someone remarkable, clever and alive in ways she had not expected. For the first time, she felt something shift inside herself. The forest, the hunt, the signs, they had all led her here to this moment of clarity. She no longer felt tension, fear, or expectation. Instead, she felt respect, curiosity, and a strange sense of connection. The human looked at her, calm and knowing. "You came to hunt," he said softly, "but perhaps you found more than you expected." She nodded, understanding. The hunter had become the observer, the prey had become the teacher, and the forest had become a place of patience, learning, and quiet power. The fire flickered, shadows danced, and in the stillness of the forest, the hunter and the human shared a moment that would remain long after the fire burned out, a moment of understanding, connection, and unexpected discovery. The hunt was over,